Jack Barnett, 21. When you think of London, certain famous places immediately flash through your mind. Buckingham Palace, Piccadilly, Trafalgar Square. But when I think of London, it's the 4 places I lived in during and after World War II that come to my mind. Of all the boroughs in London, we mainly kept to just 4 of them. The City, St Pancras, now Camden, Islington and Westminster. Travel was quicker by tube, but stations were miles away, so we generally went by bus. As a child, I lived in 4 places: King's Cross and Clerkenwell, Gospel Oak and Parliament Hill Fields, Camden Town, and Mornington Crescent, with London Zoo and Regent's Park in the background. King's Cross District, Clerkenwell, the city. King's Cross was just on the edge of the City of London, respectable but without the city's money. My mother moved there to be close to her mother at the start of the war. Of course, I don't remember my parents' wedding in 1937, but I know my future dad was called up to the army in 1939 and he stayed there till 45. But I do have 2 memories from this time. I cried when my older brother went to school, so sometimes he took me with him. Once in school, a man opened a suitcase and took out a body, well, a ventriloquist dummy. The second memory of this time, apart from the vibrations of the train going on behind the house all day long, was a gigantic march past of thousands of troops when the war was over. They marched from the Lord Mayor in the city all the way to Euston, and I stood there with my brother and my mum and my gran, and we watched and waved them past. There were thousands of them. They just kept coming. Queen Victoria had 9 children, so did my gran. My mum was the 9th of 9. My granddad was very proud of his World War I medals. Here's my mum. My gran lived in King's Cross Road, Clerkenwell. She rented the top 2 floors of this building. She was fined 5 shillings for shining a light during the blackout when an air raid warden spotted a chink of light through this upper floor window. On the basement below, on the way to the basement was a little window you could watch the trains go by. They vibrated the house gently. Here's an air raid warden looking out. What to do in blackouts? Let no light escape from your home. Well, it did, and she was fined 5 shillings for it. I lived just along the road, at number 111. One day, I took a walk. I was about 3. I was approached by a gigantic man in a blue suit. He said, "Are you lost, sonny? Come with me." And we walked together to the police station opposite my grand's house. This is at the house where we lived for 6 years, 111 King's Cross Road. The morning sirens would go. The air raid wardens would be out searching. The bombers would be coming over, dropping bombs. And my mother was expected to get 2 children into a pram and walk a quarter of a mile to King's Cross Station just by the Scala Cinema. You see, the Underground had stopped working at 11 o'clock at night, and you could go down there and sleep on the platform. It was a lot of effort on my mother's part, and sometimes she didn't go. Obviously, we survived. This is outside King's Cross Station. Later on, when I was about 7 or 8, and we lived somewhere else, we'd come by bus from Gospel Oak down to King's Cross, either to visit my Gran Vernon or go to Highbury Quadrant to see my other Gran, Barnet. Here we are in Highbury Quadrant with my second Gran, or my father's mother. His brothers lived in a place like this in the top rooms. His sister lived downstairs here, and mother and brothers lived in the house until he got married when he moved elsewhere. My father's brother was mad on cycling. He also attended Regent Street Polytechnic to study printing. Later on, he married and moved to Canada. My uncle was the first man to cycle across Canada. So, going back to my father, here he is. There, 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 and there. It looks as if he had a fairly peaceful war, but I think it was a bit traumatic because he never spoke about it. He never told us any of these things. I just found these photographs later on. My father was a wonderful man. He left behind a tiny bottle of mercury, and my brother, here with my mum, used to get this bottle and tip it up and enjoy seeing it. It would spread all over the place. My mother would spend ages trying to capture it and put it back in the bottle. This great edifice is St Pancras Station, and a hotel as well. George Gilbert Scott designed it and built it in 1856, I think. We just saw it as a place where we'd catch a bus. We caught the bus to Gospel Oak from here. Gospel Oak, Kentish Town. Here it is. It says Hampstead Heath there, but it was Parliament Hill and Hampstead Heath. We had a reconstructed house. I think it had been bombed first and then redone up, and we moved there. We knew we were only there for a short time because they were going to build blocks of flats there. but it was up there. It was a nice house. There was no bathroom, so we had a tin bath in the washroom downstairs, the laundry room downstairs. I was the third in the bath. And there was an outside loo. Not good on a cold winter's night. Here's the block of houses. We lived in this one here next to Ivy's shop. And Tommy Young lived next door. There were prefabs along the way. And of course there was a bomb site. The houses had been damaged first of all by a bomb. So here we are in front of 26 Haverstock Road. Ivy's shop was next door. And there was a paper shop here. More interesting for us was the bomb site. Here's a different view of my house. Behind it was a bomb site. We walked to the bomb site and across the bomb site in order to go to school. But also, we walked onto the bomb site for play, to build camps, to build bonfires. Around about the week before bonfire night, the whole neighbourhood spent time building bonfires, and then firework night was a wonderful night. Amazing. We hated the sound of bombs during the war, but after the war, firework night bombs were lovely. This is my infants and primary school. My brother walked with me to my infant school. He dropped me at the gate, well, pushed me in. The only thing I didn't like about infant school was they made you sleep for an hour in the afternoons. They had little beds that folded up. They'd give you a bed and a blanket and say, fall asleep, please. Terrible, last thing I wanted to do. We were close to Prince of Wales Baths. Here's where I learned to swim. I dived in at point A and swam across to point B. It was a sink or swim method, but I actually managed to swim there. We generally go with friends or the school. When the school went, they all sat round up here while races went on down there, so the swimming gala was held here. There used to be a diving board up there, but they take diving boards away because they're too dangerous, so they tell me. We were close to the Lido at Parliament Hill Fields. This was an open-air swimming pool, and if you went too early in the year, it was freezing. It had, when we went, a massive diving board. I've drawn it in there. Please excuse the shabby drawing. I remember once walking up to the first floor and then the second floor and thinking, this is too high, and walking back and diving off the edge. Of course, I had a swimming costume on then. There was a cafe there, and you could buy cups of tea and cakes. But who worried about cups of tea when we were 8 or 9? Gee. One of the things we walked across the bomb site to was the Cubs. Here's the church hall next to St Martin's Church, and all the little cubs would crowd in and play games and with Arcana. It was a lovely time. Once a month we'd go to the church for a church service. I don't remember much about the church service. In order to get to Parliament Hill Fields, we had to go across this railway bridge. I looked for a picture of it online but didn't find one, and so drew one. Here we are going across the bridge. At that stage it was steam trains going underneath. Here's my drawing of the bridge. It was a metal bridge. If you managed to be walking under when there was a steam train going over the train then you'd get drenched in steam or steam smoke. It was wonderful. When you'd finished there, you went on to Parliament Hill Fields. At this stage, just after the war, there were allotments, and they were taking them down. And so they were digging up all their vegetables. Some got left behind, and when we were starving children, I'd pick up vegetables. Mind you, I didn't like them when they were cooked, so they were not very nice when they were raw. Getting conkers. One of the joys of going over Parliament Hill Fields was to go towards the Kenwoods and conker trees. Of course, you'd only find conkers in the season. Late August, September, we'd go to the tree, obviously climb the tree, and these were huge things, massive. We'd get to the top and then shake it, and if the conkers were ripe, they would drop down. Conkers are like free jewels, aren't they? They're beautiful things. We tie them on a string and play conkers, or we just look at them, or sell them at school. This is what I loved. But it was difficult to find them on Parliament Hill Fields. There were so many people looking for blackberries, and there were so few blackberry bushes. School. I remember Miss Guppy's class. She was wonderful. She once gave me a postcard of a rose. I loved Miss Guppy. Then there was Mr. Saunders. I was indifferent to him. And then Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans would stick pins into you as you were walking up to his classroom. A nasty man. Here's me in the photograph. And there's Kenny Burr with a watch. You were only 8 or 9. Who had a watch at 8 and 9? We had to write in Mr. Evans's class by dip-in pens. Dip in. So you dipped it into the inkwell and started writing what he'd written on the board. Generally, a conversation would take place like this. Boy, you have made a blot. Go out to the front. Which hand do you write with? My right one, sir. Then put out your left one. So saying, he caned my hand. Now please remember, I was only 8 or 9. Whack, whack. We once went on a visit to the zoo. And you say, what's this got to do with these things? Well, we had our lunch outside the zoo, and I finished mine quickly and ran off to the swing gardens. They had a thing like this in the swing gardens. 2 boys got on the ends of it and tried to bash my head on the top as they swung it back and forwards. Nothing like these neat young ladies. Why do I say this? because I fell off and broke my leg. I had to go to hospital, so I didn't go back to the zoo. There it is. And what's this patio got to do with the Anderson shelter? My dad dug out this Anderson shelter from the garden and built this patio. There were so many bomb sites in London. Here was another one on the edge of Regent's Park, St Catherine's Hospital. It was bombed, and since it'd been bombed, look what happened to it. The inside was totally ruined. A friend and I were walking past it one day, and of course saw that there was a little gap in the fence, so we climbed up to the top, looking for treasures. There were operating tables and a few old beds, but nothing of use. So we gave up and went away. We were always on the lookout for some excitement, and the excitement came in the form of free rides on the backs of lorries. We would jump on the back and take a ride. If the driver spotted us, he would jump out, run round, smack you round the head, go away. On this lorry, we found a bottle of beer crate in the back, and tried some beer. Oh, God, it was disgusting. But rides on lorries were great fun. Now here's Mr. Conrad's class. He was a wonderful teacher. He had a test, and I came top of the test. That might have been good, but he moved me up into the next class. When I was a child, cinemas were all the rage. There were 8 of them around us. Look at that. This one here we bunked into. They had an A film on, and I was terrified. I hid behind the seat and left quickly. This one I was a Saturday morning monitor. Got badges galore. This one, we went in to see a film. It cost us 6pence, and at the end of the film they chucked us out. Going back onto moving up classes, I moved into Mr. Freshwater's class, which was a whole different kettle of fish. He was very severe, but I didn't get caned by him. We had a test, and I came 47th out of 48. Gee.